I'm Gina. I'm from a small town. And when I say small, I mean small. Not this, I'm from a small town of 10,000 or of 20,000 or whatever people who think they're from a small town say. No, I'm talking small. Like less than 1,000 small. Like they're counting the neighboring countryside in the census just so that we can get more money to pave our roads kind of small. And in this small town, my family had a long history of causing mischief. And as a kid, I felt the need to fulfill my family's legacy. I made up stories about the werewolves that lived in the trees by the railroad tracks. You know, the ones that ate the stupid scaredy cat boys but left the cool, tough tomboys like me alone. Yeah, I didn't have any issues with being a tomboy until school. My dad tried to dress me like a prissy little girl. He gave up on that about halfway through kindergarten when I came home with dirt and bloodstains on my perfect pink dress. No, I prefer jeans and t-shirts and this crappy redneck army jacket I found in the basement, which I wore whenever possible. I didn't really notice the teasing until about 4th grade. Girls whose moms would buy designer clothes and who would do that curl-up thing with their bangs so that it looked like there was a poodle sitting on top of their forehead. Yeah, those were the girls that made fun of me. They called me a boy, which really didn't feel like an insult at first, until I was excluded from playing with both the boys' group and the girls' group. I wasn't allowed to play football because I was a girl. And once puberty set in, my life became a hell of a lot worse. Girls got their periods and boobs, and, well, I was still stuck with no boobs. And no guy wanted to go out with me because I wasn't girly enough. So I started acting more girly. I tried to be a trendsetter. I cut my own hair, which turned out to be a slight disaster. I wore flared jeans and thought I was so badass because I watched The Real World and I was really cool with my older, cooler neighbor. That stopped working when the trends started pointing at my flaws instead of my virtues. By 8th grade, still no period, no boobs, and I was so thin that people started calling me anorexic. Ugh. Even to this day, that word makes me want to vomit. I was skinny, yes, a twig, a rail, but that's how my whole family is. I'm sure dancing helped define my curves. Not. Oh, did I forget to mention that? Yeah, well, I've been a dancer since I was 2. And I guess it helped me keep my boyish figure. So, I still looked like a boy, and I was called anorexic, and I hated the system so much that I decided to try anarchy instead. Yeah, I mean, what band geek didn't dabble in a little black flag at some point, right? Oh, I forgot to mention that too. Well, yeah, I was in band. Percussion. So that phase ended rather quickly, but it catapulted me into the role of band weirdo, thus sealing my fate at the bottom rung of the food chain before I had begun my freshman year. Bad decision, or so I thought at the time. I knew I wouldn't be able to switch sides, so I just embraced the weirdo inside me, letting it escape in a series of spiky haircuts, hippie dancing in the hallways, and an attitude that said, I really don't care if you like me or not. But I really did care. Every high schooler cares. It's all we know. It's our world, and if we can't be accepted there, then where can we be accepted? That year, I found a boy who accepted me. He was fun, silly, and weird, just like me. But he began to manipulate my feelings. He called me a whore, a slut, even though I still held my V card. In truth, he was the only guy that had even been remotely interested in me, and I liked the attention. But it got bad. I felt ashamed all the time. I didn't feel good enough. I felt like I wasn't worth the time people spent on me. What made matters worse were the feelings I began to have for someone close to me. My best friend. We'd been friends since we were 5, and we knew everything about each other. We'd rocked out to Hanson at her house, jumping up and down on her bed, screaming about the men from Milwaukee, and reciting verbatim the correct pronunciation of the chorus to Mbop. I knew I couldn't tell her about it. I couldn't tell anybody about it. Coming from a small town where everybody knows everybody else's business, I knew as soon as I told one person, everyone else would know. I also didn't know how to feel about the religious side of things. My boyfriend was a super religious guy, like cult-like religious, in my humble opinion. And from that experience, I learned that these feelings weren't God-like, and that I would most certainly go to hell for having them. So, I buried my feelings. I buried who I was in order to stay alive. And in doing so, I felt dead. I grew depressed. I grew depressed because I couldn't be who I was. I thought about how easy it would be if I could just end my life. I wouldn't have to keep the secret. But would I pay the price for my feelings? My boyfriend certainly had me convinced that God would punish me if I did anything that he didn't disapprove of, or didn't approve of. I didn't have the courage to stand on my own and be who I truly was, and I lost myself in the process. But I did what I had to do. When my boyfriend started threatening to kill himself if I broke up with him, I realized that taking my own life was a waste, that I was better than this. I deserved more. We deserved more. So I ended it. And it got better. Even though I hadn't truly embraced who I was, things did get better. I went through sophomore and junior year without feeling overwhelmed with anxiety, fear, or grief. And then there was senior year. My last remaining grandparents died within a year of each other. Losing my second mother, my mom's mom, was the worst. I searched for love of any kind to fill the hole that had been created by her death, and I found it. But it didn't last. I gave him the one gift you can't return, and he dumped me. I became empty again. The pain I felt was unbearable. I can't describe it. I lost my innocence, lost my grandparents, couldn't tell my best friend that I loved her more than I could say. I wanted so desperately to escape, and so I did. The easiest thing to find was cocaine. With Miami University a short drive north and midterm exam week arriving, all I had to do was stroll uptown and observe. I tried it, and I hated it. It felt like snorting pixie sticks, but instead of the fruity burn you get from those, it was like fire. And it didn't help. It just made me stay up all night and think about everything. So I went back up to Oxford and found the right person with the right stuff. Lady Heroin. From what I heard, she'd do for me what other drugs couldn't. So I went with my mom to clean up my dead diabetic grandma's house. I pocketed some syringes and had my first hit that night. The vein came so easily to the surface. I slid the needle in and watched as blood mingled with the crystal clear substance that was to be my escape. It felt hot as it surged through me. I laid back on the bed and sunk away. Far, far away. It was the escape I'd been yearning for. I felt my dependence grow over the next few weeks, and I knew that if I didn't stop, I would be found out by someone, not only ruining my life, but others as well. And let me tell you, going cold turkey was the hardest thing I have ever done. It made me toy with the thought of suicide again. The withdrawals, God, they were horrid. I still get the itch sometimes. I know I always will, and I would like to admit that it was a terrible thing, and that drugs are bad, and they are. They aren't the answer. They just make you weaker. But damn, did it feel good in the moment. Once I stopped, things did get better. I was able to cope with my feelings of anger and sadness, and I was able to deal with the fact that I would never be able to be with her. So I graduated, went to college, and at the end of my junior year, I was finally able to figure out who I was. I am a pre-service English teacher who loves to write and read, who loves Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and enjoys reading comic books. I'm a fan of sports, especially hockey, basketball, and volleyball, and baseball. I like a good laugh. I like to smile. I like getting fired up about politics and education. I like getting my voice heard. I am a coffee drinker, an environmentalist, and organic foods are way better kind of girl. I like the hippies and the nuclear housewives, Edie Sedgwick and Jackie Kennedy. I listen to classical music, heavy metal, jazz, alternative rock, folk, indie, the Mamas and the Papas, the Beatles, the Stones, Block Party and Adele, and baby, 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 ooh. I also like boys and girls and everyone in between. I like them all because I've learned through my experiences that it's not the gender or sex of a person, but what's inside their soul that really counts. Admittedly, Leonardo DiCaprio is a beautiful man, but his talent and his activism are what truly attracts me to him. Yes, I am in a relationship with a boy, but it isn't his manhood that I fell in love with. As I explained to my mom when I came out to her, it wouldn't matter if Steve were a boy or a girl. I would still be in love with that person. Because love transcends gender, space, and time. It moves fluidly in and around us. Love is from the connection two souls have, regardless of what a doctor puts on their birth certificates. Love knows no boundaries. And for the record, I'm not like this because my mom was the breadwinner or because she raised a tomboy. I'm not like this because I was bullied or because I listened to hippie music. That liberal arts education that really did a number on me didn't make me this way either. And neither did you. No, I'm not a product of the abuse I suffered at your hand. It isn't because you forced me to take baths with you, or because you made me touch you, or because you laid on top of me and humped my 7-year-old body. No, you did not do this to me. You do not get the satisfaction. This is who I am, who I was born to be. Yes, I was born this way, and nothing you say or do will ever change that. And yes, it did suck for a while. And yes, it will suck for a while. But I do know that things will get better. And things are better. They are better because I've accepted who I am, and I'm proud. And no matter what anyone says, I'm happy knowing that I am who I am, and I don't have to hide. That I'm free. And yes, things will get better.